we're pleased to be joined by Bill DeWitt III, Cardinals team president. It's a very, very busy weekend with the winter warm-up and all the related activities. So it's great that he could make some time for us. Bill, a belated Happy New Year. I hope everything's well.
Hey, Bernie. Yeah, thanks. You too. Everything's rolling along. We're excited for the winter warm-up this weekend.
All right, I want to get the first thing out of the way because I wrote a column about it, actually, and talked about it at length on the air, probably ad nauseum. Like, everybody's obsessed with payroll, and there's so much more that goes into winning or losing, frankly, than your payroll size. And baseball reminds us of that all the time. The new playoff format reminds us of that all the time. But for the sake of just clarity, because if you go to COTS contracts, you see one figure. You go to Fangraphs, you see another figure. You see Post-Dispatch research by Derek Gould, and I respect him because I know how meticulous he is. That's a different figure. You go to Spotrac, it's a different figure. So I'm not exactly sure where the Cardinals are. I know that they're around where they were last year. With the 40-man, they're already above where you were last year. So the best that you can describe it, where is the payroll, and will it be higher than it was last year? And are you surprised that there seems to be a belief that, the payroll has gone down? That doesn't check out with me. I don't see it that way. But I do admit to being a little confused about knowing exactly where you are. Sorry for the long question.
No, you're fine. I think it's fair. And it's funny. There's yet another version that we use internally that's different from all the ones you described, because the ones you describe, I think, typically include a bunch of things that relate to like pension costs, and they're real costs. But when you just do the raw salaries, it's kind of a different number. But in any event, yes, we are budgeting for payroll to go up. This time of year, typically, you like for your team to be kind of set with room to do something if you need to do it. And I think that's kind of where we are. Obviously, we'd all love to see, big bullpen arm or we could debate other aspects where we could get better in the off season. But I think if you don't do or get something like that done in the off season, then that's just a little more dry powder for something along the way, if we need it. So, as you know, we don't forecast or project what we're trying to do from a player-by-player basis. So, and it can be fluid. Mo may not know what arms we're going to end up with or arm. So, I think, but to your point about just generally the payroll, this is an aggressive year for us financially because, revenues are going to be down a bit because of the bad season on the field, and ticket sales, will sag just a little bit in terms of our projection. We certainly hope at the end of the day they won't, but we have to be realistic. We've got pressure on local media revenues, and we'll see where that plays out. But it's a challenging operating environment, but we believe this team is worthy of an increased investment to get back into the race in the NL Central, and that's what we're planning on doing.
And is it safe to say, and I was, of course, reading my friend Derek Gould this morning in STL Today, but, and I got the strong impression that, if John Mozeliak or his aides, come to you and your dad and say, look, we'd really like to sign this reliever. We think we need one guy. And let's just say the reliever's not, a $1 million guy, maybe, or a $2 million guy. Maybe he's more costly than that. And I'm not talking about a Josh Hader contract. I'm grounded to reality. But is there room to make that addition without feeling any kind of pinch? So do you think is the flexibility there?
Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, it's like I said, you'd really like to enter the season with some room between your budgeted number and where you are at the opening day. But if there's a compelling deal to be done that sort of gets you at budget. We've done that in the past. So, does that answer your question on that?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just one of those deals where I'd like to think that you would, if there's a really good value signing, you wouldn't pass it up going into the season. But your point's well taken, because we've seen John Mozeliak in the past, add starting pitching. In fact, 2 years in a row at the deadline, and it worked out great. So I'm pragmatic in my thinking on those things. So, yeah, I understand your point. I really do.
And I read your article, and I thought it was fair. I mean, you do your homework and you research the issues and the players and the moves and what the team's doing, rather than just fixating on a number. And, look, our philosophy is we do everything we can with the revenues that we generate in this franchise we have to put the best product on the field, whether that's payroll. It's a mix, right? It's a balancing act that adds it all up, whether it's the payroll on the field, scouting, player development. We have a high draft pick this year, which, is a bigger number in terms of the slotting. All those things add up, and you end up with the full baseball operations number. And it's not like we're, putting millions of dollars in our pocket with owner distributions, right? So the machine generates the revenue that goes towards the product on the field. And so, you can kind of sing into the wind about the actual number, but it's a function of the revenues. So
Right.
That's really, if you want to really dig on what's the payroll, what should it be, or whatever, we should talk about what kind of revenue we're going to generate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and let me ask you about the local TV contract or local rights, and I do my best to keep up with it, but I'm not all that smart about such matters, so at least I admit it. But here's I think what most fans want to know: when will the Cardinals know with certainty whether 2024 will proceed under normal circumstances in terms of your television contract and all the money that's owed to the Cardinals will come your way? Do you see a fixed point where it is certain for 2024, and at least for 2024, the season, you won't have to worry as much about it? Is that day coming? What are the chances?
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The answer is yes. I hope so. We expect that there will be a deal that is struck between the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball to approve the plan for the Diamond entity, Diamond Sports Holdings, which owns all these 14 RSNs or whatever, that if those leagues approve these deals, then they can emerge from bankruptcy. So when it emerges from bankruptcy, they're back in business, and but it's very likely that deal that will be approved will carry the NBA and the NHL through this season, and MLB through next season, 2024. This upcoming one, and then it'll probably kind of revert back to all the leagues. It's not going to be. We don't think Diamond is going to be a going concern beyond next season. So, but to answer your question directly, we think that a deal will get done and that it'll emerge from bankruptcy, thereby, I guess, assuring to as much extent you can a uninterrupted year next year.
And one other thing looking forward, and this is not exactly a new thought, but I wanted to run it by you, and I think you have actually talked about this, maybe even with me, a while back. But if it ever gets to the point where, in effect, the Cardinals can set up their own system of offering, a TV package directly to the consumer, given your national appeal and your incredibly strong regional appeal, and if you don't have blackouts on home games, I would think the Cardinals are well positioned to do really, really well in that type of setup. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think that taking a step back, right now we have a real problem with access to our product by our fans, a TV product, because in two ways we've lost eyeballs. The first way is people who were on basic cable and subscribed to the bundle have cut the cord, and in doing so, they don't get their content that way anymore, and there's no other way to get Cardinals games in our market, right? They can get outer market games on MLB TV, but they can't get Cardinals games in market if they've cut the cord. The second way we've lost eyeballs on our product is that we have teams that or people that were on a distributor, like for example Dish, a satellite company that dropped Bally Sports Midwest. So they might still be a subscriber to the bundle, but that bundle dropped sports. And the combination of those two things have led to basically us not being in enough households. And so the good news about this TV disruption is that regardless of how it plays out in the bankruptcy and all that other stuff, we are likely to be able to increase access and create a direct-to-consumer product in market. So if you cut the cord or if you're on a bundle that doesn't have the RSN, you'll have a direct app that you can get in market games. And that means that everybody can get access to the product. There's no actual blackouts. And that's what we're really looking forward to. I think as it relates to combining with the Blues and doing a regional sports network, I think that's on the table. But we have to get through like 2 or 3 more steps in terms of this bankruptcy and through next season and all that, I think, before we start planning on, either comboing with them, going it alone, or what have you.
We're having a conversation with Cardinals President Bill DeWitt III. We appreciate his time today. Bill, to go back to sort of the one thing that I'm centering on, which is, again, there's a lot of things that have to go into winning. It's not, as I said in the piece that I wrote, I'm not a single issue voter. It's not just payroll. There's a lot more that goes into it. And the Cardinals, I think, have fallen behind in some areas. But if you, in your opinion, and I know you care deeply about this stuff and you're very cognizant of everything, what do you think the Cardinals need to do in ways that go beyond the size of the payroll in terms of putting yourselves in the best position to win, or at least be more capable of winning at a very high level? Is it a pitching program? Is it technology? Is it a pitching lab? I'm just throwing stuff out there. There seems to me that there could be things you could get after to try to put the club overall in better shape going forward from a competitive standpoint. Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I mean, I think that we have to be on the front edge of technology and on performance. And there's a lot of aspects to it. It's not just pitching labs and technology, but it's also, it's things like medical performance and how players train and eat and all that stuff, which I think we've been on the front edge of in recent years. We hired a new assistant to Mo, Chaim Bloom, recently, which I know you saw. And there's somebody who grew up kind of in the Rays organization and then was president of baseball ops with the Red Sox more recently. And, to be honest, I think we'll be looking to him a little bit to see where some of that cutting-edge stuff is that they were doing in Tampa and to some extent in Boston. But I think you have to look at everything. And that's partly the job of Mo and pushing his staff to do that, partly the job of sort of ownership and management to push on making sure the right people are in place who have that same attitude. So I agree with you there. And I'm just saying this because you know how I feel, and I've written and talked about this so many times through the years. I always had great respect for your father because, well, I still do, even if I've gotten on him for some things, but I think we still have a pretty solid relationship. But anyway, but your father was really at the forefront of this entire movement. There was no owner who was front and center and more forward thinking in terms of changing the model for player procurement, roster efficiency, payroll efficiency, making sure that you're finding a way to draft and develop more intelligently and with better results. And it's that way you wouldn't be overly dependent on having to really buy players, because you were producing enough on your own and you were doing it efficiently, and then you could supplement your homegrown talent with some select free agent purchases or trades. And it worked. Needless to say, it worked great. All you got to do is look at the record for a long, long time. So I really do believe, you all have it in you to do that again, and to sort of get whatever's been, wherever maybe you've slipped, so to speak. Knowing your father's interest in this and the fact that he's done it before and he did it earlier than just about every other owner in baseball. Of course, it can be done again. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I can assure you that that's his attitude today, like it's always been, which is, how do we get smarter? How do we get better? How do we compete with the big boys with resources that are a step below those big boys? But in fairness, with our great fan base, we're ahead of most, right? I think you mentioned that and I agree with you, it's a relative question as to where you are in ranking. How do we compete? Where are we, top 5, top 10, top 20 out of 30? We've always been around, call it end of the first third, right? 10th, 11th, 9th,
right.
12th in payroll, or revenues rather, and then payroll has fallen in line with approximately that same ranking. And that's really what's important in terms of the spending question relative to other teams. But you also have to be smarter. And what we did and before I think a lot of other teams caught up to us in the analytics revolution, as we were ahead of that game, we really broke what wasn't, or fixed what wasn't broken in some respects after it was kind of the 2006, 2007 timeframe when we brought in Jeff Luhnow and sort of pushed on some things that seemed to be okay but needed. My dad was ahead of that curve, and I think now we're always asking ourselves how we get ahead of that curve. It is harder, I will say. I mean, just being honest, almost every team, not every team, but the vast majority have very intelligent people looking ahead, using analytics. It used to be we would draft on the board, and like 2 or 3 teams would seem to draft the guy that was next up for us, maybe 4 or 5. And now it seems like 20, 25 teams are picking that next guy on the list, meaning that they're probably looking at things in a we think a pretty similarly smart way in the draft. And that's just one example, but it doesn't mean there aren't things we can push on and find advantages of, and that's incumbent upon us to find those right now.
Yeah, again, I'm speaking to someone who knows this very well, but for our listeners, to me, if I had to just identify one thing that I believe would be incredibly helpful for the Cardinals, is that if you sort of restore, and it can't happen overnight, but if you can restore that lifeblood that you've all had for so long, which is drafting and developing your own pitching. And you guys have been, phenomenal at that. And it's really, if I made a list of why you won for so long, it would have to be right up there, 1A or 1B, if not 1 overall, because the pitching's a foundation of everything. If you can, pardon the metaphor, but if you can get those seeds planted again, it'll really make a difference, because good pitching will cover for some other flaws that you have on your team, whatever that may be. So that's I'm hoping that's what happens. I really am.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that has been a differentiator for us. And if you look, I think, at the last year, we've really been playing catch-up in the pitching game, whether it was in the drafting part of it or in international signings. The trade deadline was a complete pitching, focused set of moves, which, by the way, was probably the equivalent of at least a draft, if not better, which, you never want to be in that position, and we haven't for many, many years. But I will say it was somewhat refreshing to be on the other side of that coin, at least for that moment in time last summer, where you're bringing in talent instead of giving it up to make a run. So hopefully we're on the other side of that this year. But and then the trade market we've explored a little bit and done a few things. And even when you look at Rule 5 stuff and waivers and stuff, it's been pitching. So I think you're now seeing. I don't want to say a fully restocked, but partially restocked levels in the minor leagues, and some guys closer than that that you'll see next year of pitching, and then. But to your point of let's develop them well as well. Of course, that goes without saying, and needs to be a focus also.
Bill, I know you're busy. I reiterate, I really appreciate you coming on today, and we'll talk again soon. And also hope that the really cold weather doesn't keep people at home, because I know that the winter warm-up's a big deal, and your fans really love it. So, and there's a lot going on down there too. So I hope that that all goes well for the fans and for the Cardinals, and all the people working down there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It should be a fun weekend, even with the cold, and we always get a great turnout, great fans, and there's stuff for all ages to do. So hope everyone comes down.
And we got the Hall of Fame meeting next week. I think I'll be there. That's my plan. So hopefully you'll see you there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks, Bernie.
Bye. That's Bill DeWitt III here on the Bernie Show. Listen, I always have a good conversation with him. When I interview him, it's conversation. And I always can get to what I want to find out and learn from him, the way talk radio is everywhere, and this is not me taking shots at anybody, really isn't. It's kind of like there's hosts who I think, and they're, again, in every market, feel like they've got to pass some kind of macho test every time they interview like a team executive or something. And it's never been my style. I've always found you can get a hell of a lot more by just having a conversation. You still get your questions across, but you're not doing a Jerry Springer show, So I always enjoy our conversations with Bill III, who's increasingly important in this whole setup. He's got a lot of responsibility, and he is absolutely one of the primary decision makers. And I know, and I'm convinced he is a forward-thinking guy in terms of some of the stuff we just talked about, where the Cardinals need to catch up. If there's anyone down there who's pushing, it would be him, And I'm not implying that other people aren't aware of it, but he's really on top of that kind of thing. But he's pretty much in charge of business and a lot of other things that aren't directly the competitive product. But he obviously puts. He's obviously very cognizant of all of that stuff, and has a great read on where they could get stronger and better, where they've fallen behind, where they can catch up. And we just talked about some of those things, and it sounds like the TV thing's going to work out okay for them, and that'd be good for everybody, because I think the fans deserve certainty. And the fans deserve, when it gets to that point, not anytime real soon, but a direct-to-consumer product that they can offer. I think that'll work out for everybody. But selfishly, let me just say this. I'm just tired of talking about this TV stuff, And I'm one of those consumers. It's like, I don't know what to do. We don't have cable. We have DirecTV. I'm speaking candidly here. Mm-hmm. I keep DirecTV simply because I'm not sure how I would get Cardinals and Blues games if I didn't have DirecTV in a way that I would want to do it, because MLB, I subscribe to MLB TV, but of course the home games are blacked out. I like YouTube TV, but they don't carry Bally Sports Midwest, right? There's another one, Fubu or Fobu, whatever that is. They will carry Bally Sports Midwest, Cardinals Blues. So my point, and I know I need to get to a break. I'll wrap this up. It's a headache to try to just like have to deal with this puzzle. And frankly, I'm wasting a lot more money than I should be trying to solve this riddle, you know?
Yes.
Can we just make it linear? Can we just get it to a place where it's easy and it's a direct line and you're not like, well, do I need to cut the cable? Do I need to, take out the satellite dish? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? That's one thing that's going to be coming up in our house soon. We're probably going to, I'm going to use a sports term. We're going to rebuild the way we watch TV, have a leaner, stronger operation. But then again, because of my work, I have to have access to Cardinals and Blues games, It's not like that's even optional. Although, MLB TV, I think you can watch the games after they're finished. I'm talking about like the home games. You can watch it very late at night, but that's not ideal either, So anyway, I didn't mean to go on, but I was just explaining why this issue is something that really impacts a lot of people, including fans, because everybody's sick of it,
Agreed. I am basically the same kind of setup you do, Bernie, and I keep contemplating get rid of this, and I go, but I need to be able to watch the games. Right. That's the only reason I keep certain packages. So like, if it wasn't for that, I'd cancel that thing immediately. But that's the only thing I use it for. It's like, boy, it's overpriced and everything else that goes with it. But if you want it, that's what you got to pay.